Hey guys, this is McWilliam again. This time bringing you kind of a German fighter tutorial with tips and going over the strengths and weaknesses of the German fighters in particular, and some tactics and such that are tips and tactics and such that are good to use in the German fighters, as well as I got a lot of stuff here that you can use in any fighter really. But this is mostly specifically towards the Germans. I spawned late in this game because I was off browsing the web while I was in queue because I was waiting in queue for like 7 minutes. The queue's getting ridiculous, and especially on, I'm not so sure on the Russian server, but on the European, if you're trying to find games on the European server, at least me, I have hard times finding games sometimes, and like, the average wait time will be like 45 seconds, and then I'll be waiting in queue for like 8 minutes, and it upsets me. I tried doing one of these live, trying giving these tips and stuff in a live game. Am I spawned yet? I just spawned, okay. It didn't work out. One thing we'll note, right off the beginning here, I notice a bomber is below me, so I perform a split S. Just keep that in mind. I'll go over specific like combat maneuvers and stuff. Just kind of keep in mind that I perform a split S at the beginning. It's a good example of a split S. So when I go over this in more detail later on, you can go back to like this part in the video and just like, oh yeah, okay, a split S. Start off with German's strengths and weaknesses. I'm reading from notes I wrote down here, so I'm not going to be paying too much attention to the video. I'll use it to cite some examples, hopefully, if I'm paying attention enough, and mostly it's just to entertain you while I'm playing this off. German strengths. They're really good energy fighters. They got excellent rate of climb, and they perform excellently in a dive. They have great power to weight ratios. So they're very good energy fighters. You want to definitely learn to manage your energy well to get really good in the German fighters. They're also really fast. They're some of the fastest planes in the game. They have decent armor. German planes fighters, I find, are typically better armored than the British planes, but not quite as heavily armored as American fighters. But that puts them in like second place for in terms of fighter armor for countries. They also have typically the cannons perform very well. I like the German cannons, and most of their fighters, the guns are all typically close together, or they're either all on the nose or on this Focke-Wulf 190 Dora 13. It has one centered in the nose that shoots straight through the engine, and then two on the wing, but they're right next to the fuselage. This is a good view right there. So they're very close together, which helps to be more precise with your shooting, I find, and also makes it so you can kind of set your gun convergence at a greater distance while having less consequence for shooting at close range, because they start out close, so your guns can typically all hit. All your guns will hit. Whereas like the British or Americans, who have all their guns like pretty far out on the wings, gun convergence is really important, is to find out what you're comfortable shooting targets at and sending your gun convergence to that. But then if you try to shoot too close compared to your gun convergence, or like too far away, it really hurts your damage potential, and it might make you completely miss your enemy when playing with guns that are close together. You easily hit. It also helps having your guns kind of centered and close. Really helps with head-to-heads, because you want to start shooting in a head-to-head fight as far away as possible. You want to start shooting at the earliest possible moment, and it'll help you really get the advantage there. And then also at head-to-head, you close distance very rapidly. So if your guns are far apart, the amount of time you'll be at your ideal distance for your set gun convergence with your target is very brief. So you have a very brief moment to do maximum amount of damage when your guns are far apart in a head-to-head. And Germans are very good at head-to-head fights. Let's see, weaknesses. Germans are typically weaker at low altitude. They won't perform as well. Especially the plane I'm flying here, the Focke-Wulf 190 Dora. The Doras are very good high-altitude fighters, but they'll turn like crap, and just not... their engines won't perform as efficiently at a lower altitude. Germans have really poor low-speed turns. They also lose speed very rapidly in high G turns, and that coupled together cripples Germans in turn fights. Germans want to avoid turn fights for the most part as much as possible. If you do have high speed going into a turn fight to attempt to follow an enemy plane's maneuver, they do turn better at high speeds. You lose speed fast, so you kind of have to judge it. You don't want to overcommit to these turn fights. You kind of have to learn what exceptions to the rule there are, but in general, you want to avoid turn fights. Don't overcommit to turn fights. They're also reliant on their engine power to pull them through turns. That's what maneuverability the Germans do get in turns, is from their engines. While like Japanese and British planes, even with kind of lower engine powers, they flow through turns just better. Whereas German fighters, when you're flying them, you can just feel that you're just using all your engine, but your engine's just kind of just pulling you through it. And so if your engine suffers damage, or you can't go to war emergency power or overthrottle your engine because you overheated or such at that time, it'll hurt your turn performance greatly. So those are the general strengths and weaknesses of the German planes in general, and all the German planes behave similarly, with exception to the HE-112s. The HE-112s break the German fighter. They're much more maneuverable, they're much more turn fighter fighters, and you'll never see that again, like in the Germans at all, really. I guess I can go over certain airplanes. The 109s are typically more maneuverable. They don't climb, and they're not typically as fast as the Focke-Wulf 190s, but they're typically more maneuverable. So keep that in mind when you're fighting like other Germans. But typically your advantages over other countries' fighters are still the same. And I love the Focke-Wulf 190s. They're great. I love those planes. Now we're gonna go into like some tips and tactics. Oh, first we'll talk about this. What's going on here? You'll see I have a Spitfire on my tail, and I was doing some crazy like barrel rolls and like fluctuating my flight path. When you get someone on your tail, you'll want to try to outrun them when being chased. If they come in at you, if you're at low altitude and they come in and dive on you, even if it's like a slower nation plane like British Spitfire or something, if they're coming in from a high altitude, they'll have lots of energy and they'll be able to keep up with you, so it'll be difficult to outrun them. But even if you try to outturn them, they'll outturn you. They'll match your turn easily. So you typically want to avoid trying to turn. So you want to try and outrun them when you're being chased. But I had a Spitfire on my tail earlier in the game. You can go back and find that, and I successfully outrun him while dodging him. he just didn't have the energy to follow me, and I eventually just put so much distance between him and me, he just gave up chasing me, and then I was able to turn back into the fight, gain altitude, do my thing. Here he had the energy to keep up with me and even gain on me, and so I had to focus on dodging his attacks, and then bring him to my allied pilots, the people on my team, and like call out for someone to cover me. And when you are dodging them, you kind of want to fly straightish, but then you have smooth, rapid changes in your flight path. So just kind of practice that. It makes you very difficult to hit. It's very difficult to hit someone when they're just kind of flying straightish, but then they just make these tiny like fluctuations and they're going fast. So because of their speed, those tiny fluctuations just completely change where you have to be aiming for your bullets to hit. It makes it very difficult to hit, and it can be extremely frustrating. I've been chasing people who do that, and it can get frustrating trying to hit those people. Back to some tips and tactics. Back to the top of my list. I had to kind of skip to the middle of my list there for that. In general, you want to stay high with the German fighters. You're going to be performing boom and zoom tactics for the most part. Same as with my BF 110 video. Just kind of stay high above the fight, and then look for great targets of opportunity. Just swoop in, do your thing, blow someone up, and then get out. Don't overcommit to turn fights again. Learn to lead your targets effectively. In arcade mode, you get that little gray circle marker thing that shows you where you're quote unquote supposed to aim to hit the target. That little circle is where you're supposed to aim if they continue straight on that flight path. So if they're flying perfectly straight at the same speed and all that jazz as they currently are, you put your crosshair on your circle and pull the trigger, you'll hit them. Thing is, people typically aren't flying straight, and they're also typically accelerating or maybe even decelerating. Decelerating when they're in a tight turn, but because they're in a tight turn, it changes where you want to aim, and the little circle thing will be wrong. So you kind of want to. It takes practice. It takes getting used to, and you just kind of learn. It's a great guide. The circle is useful still. It can be a very useful guide, but you often don't want to aim right at it. You'll typically want to aim in front of it, I find. When they're in turns, or if they're flying straight and they're accelerating, you'll want to aim in front of it a bit. And it just takes some practice and getting used to, but eventually you'll kind of just be able to just look at someone and tell their relative speed and how hard they're turning, and kind of get just a natural instant I need to aim here relative to the circle. And you'll just get better with practice. It's kind of an instinct thing. Use your ailerons. That's what makes you roll. For people who don't know what ailerons, who don't know aircraft terminology totally. I'm going to use a lot of terminology specifically later on. You want to use, if you're using mouse and keyboard, which I currently do, and I know a lot of people do. This is a tip mostly for them. You want to use your A and D keys if your default setup, which I'd imagine you probably are. If you're a mouse aim, they won't let you change your keys anyway, I don't think. A and D to roll, and this can help you when you're turning. If you turn hard, the instructor, your quote-unquote instructor thing, the guy who flies the airplane for you basically when you're doing mouse aim, he'll roll himself eventually if you do really hard turns. But even for small turns, if you're trying to shoot someone, can help to roll the aircraft yourself with the A and D keys to make sure you get the plane to face the exact direction you want without making like weird up or down just try it, play with it, and you kind of get an idea. Then also when you know you're going to make a hard turn, it helps to tell the airplane to roll yourself, so that when you do start doing that turn, you're already pulling real hard. You're already banked and rolled preemptively, and then your instructor knows, like, okay, he just wants to turn really hard, so he'll do automatically. You'll already be at your you'll already bring your plane sideways and be able to bank and pull real hard into a turn. So try play around with that. Get used to doing that. It's very it can help you out a lot. Make sure you're using the right guns for the right target. Germans vary in firepower a lot. Really, first get your cannons. Now it's on the HE-112, the last HE-112 is where you first like get cannons. When I was playing through the German line at the early levels, they didn't have the HE-112, so my first experience with cannons for the Germans was the 109s. And for the most part, 20 mils can get will allow you to successfully engage most bombers. But then, like, Lancasters, B-17s, B-24s, even the 20 mils will have some serious trouble bringing those planes down. Actually, this plane coming up that I'll be flying here. This plane has two 20 mils and two 30 mils. It is a great bomber killer. The ME-410 URB3, something like that. It's the last ME-410. It's the level 10 ME-410. It's a great bomber killer, and it can be effective against fighters if you get the drop on them. But in dogfights, the lighter fighters will easily get on your 6. I'm actually kind of running out of replay to go over all the stuff I really want to go over. What was I doing? Guns for the right target. Okay. Some maneuvers. For Germans, you want to get familiar with the yo-yo maneuver. I use it all the time. I'll probably post comments or in the description of the video times in the video when I do yo-yo maneuvers. You'll use this. Good German pilots will use the yo-yo all the time. Here's a... I think I'm about to do a yo-yo here. This is kind of an example of a yo-yo here. When an enemy turns, and you know he can turn sharper than you. When you're on an enemy 6, and he's in a much more maneuverable aircraft, which is pretty much going to always be the case when you're Germans. He's going to turn sharply to disengage to make it so you can't shoot him, and then try to lure you into a turn fight, which works for his advantage. You want to pull up into the vertical and get to lose airspeed, but also gain energy because you're at a higher altitude, so your potential energy is greater. And then you lose airspeed to help you turn a bit faster, so you turn at the top of your turn and then come back down. And if you do it right, you'll come back down like on his 6 or at an angle where you have an opportunity to shoot him, and then you get to regain your airspeed as you come down and use that potential energy and turn it into airspeed. And that can help you stay on the 6 of more maneuverable enemy fighters. It's very, very essential for German fighters, and you'll be using it all the time. You've probably done it a few times already, and you just didn't know what it was called or what you were doing. But it's a very, very essential move for German aircraft. The split S, as there goes my last aircraft in this game. We do eventually win. It's kind of let's see, switch to other. How do I switch to other aircraft or whatever? Okay, this evidently this guy's the only guy we can watch right now. Whatever. The split S. The split S is when you're flying like you're just flying straight, and then like at the beginning of the video I hear you just roll your aircraft upside down, and then fly downward. You pull the stick back and fly downward until you're facing the opposite direction. It's basically allows you to do a 180-degree turn while dropping altitude and gaining speed. So it's very great for engaging enemies that are below you and going the opposite direction. It's a very easy maneuver to just get on someone's six when they're below you, etc. It's a nifty maneuver. Also, the Immelman is a good maneuver. It's basically just the opposite of a split S. You just pull back on the stick when you're flying level to pull up until you're facing the opposite direction you were facing before, and then you roll your aircraft so that you're right side top again. So you sacrifice airspeed to gain altitude and reverse direction, and that can help you get on the tail of like a bomber or something that's flying above you. Be careful with that though, because you typically want to engage bombers at a high speed. Don't want to be attacking bombers at like the same speed they're flying at, because that makes it very easy for the tail gunners to just chew you up. The Immelman turn. The Immelman turn is very similar to a yo-yo. You just pull up hard and then turn at the top of your turn, then kind of come back down and regain your airspeed. And it's like kind of a yo-yo, but not in a dogfight. It's slightly different, but just imagine you're the yo-yo, and that's kind of what an Immelman turn is. Next, I don't want to get... The video is pretty much over, so I don't want to go into detail with this. Is the rolling scissors. There's two types of scissors maneuvers in aerial combat, essentially. There's flat scissors, and there's rolling scissors. Look these terms up, and it's very... I can't explain them too well. But look them up, try and get an understanding of them, and they're very difficult to perform. The flat scissors isn't too difficult to perform, but your German, it doesn't. Flat scissors is bad for German aircraft. You are in a disadvantage if you ever get into a flat scissors fight, which typically you don't get into scissors fights. I don't see scissors being performed too much in War Thunder, and arcade matches at least. That's not too hard, but it's bad. You're at a disadvantage in a German aircraft for the most part with the flat scissors. Rolling scissors has potential to work to the advantage of a German aircraft, but is much harder to perform. It's a very complex maneuver. If you're not good at it, it can just attempting it can work to your disadvantage. But then again, how are you going to get good at it if you don't attempt it? And since, you know, this is not real life and you can die several times, you might as well kind of try it when the situation to attempt it pops up, and try and get better at it. It's especially hard to do with mouse aim controls. If you have a joystick, I probably wouldn't even bother trying to do it without a joystick. So look up rolling scissors and kind of get an idea of what that is, and if you have a joystick, maybe do go into a test flight thing and kind of practice the maneuver a bit, and then see if you can employ it in an actual dogfight in game at some point. And you know, if you do, and you know, just post in the comments or something, tell me how it worked out for you. I'd be interested to know, because I haven't really practiced it all that much myself either. and I haven't really employed it with too much success. Let's see, is there anything else? Work with wingmen for maximum effectiveness. If you have friends who play this game, squad up with them, and you know, work with them. Especially Germans, since if someone does get on your tail and can keep up with you and can stay on your tail, it can be extremely difficult to shake them since you're not as maneuverable as most planes out there. So often you need someone to come and shoot the guy off of you. And it's much easier to do that if you're working with a friend or wingman who you can call to help you out and get him off your tail. So that's kind of more essential for the Germans than and Americans especially. Americans too. You should work with teammates, and that'll give you a huge advantage over other pilots out there. Also, when you're in public games and you don't have like a specific wingman or something, I notice this a lot. People, for some reason, instead of shooting the guy that's on their teammate's 6 and getting the guy off of their teammate's 6, they'll go after the guy that their teammate is shooting at. So they'll kill their teammate's target, be just like, haha, I got the kill, and then fly away, when their teammate still has someone on their 6, and then get shot down. When you could have killed the guy on your teammate's 6, saved him, and then maybe been a douchebag and then also steal his kill, but then at least you saved his life. I mean, you know, you're helping your team a bit more there. But, yeah, when you see the opportunity, help your teammates out. Come on, guys, let's be nice to each other out there. Alright, and also, if you see someone on the other team and, you know, you notice he's good, go throw out some compliments, be nice, let's get the community to help one another out, you know? Dogfighting with another skilled pilot is a lot of fun, especially when they're in a similar plane as you. You can learn a lot. Let's just be nice to each other, alright? Alright. If you have any questions about any of the maneuvers, or any questions about German planes, or just anything, just post in the comments. If you want to see a tutorial specifically about something in general, post in the comments. I might try to put a video up about it or something. Pretty much, yeah, that's it. Just if you have any questions, just post in the comments, let me know. I'll try to get back to you, maybe post a video to help explain things more thoroughly. If you practiced what I gave to you here today and it helped you out, let me know. I'd be glad to hear that I helped some people out with this tutorial. Good luck out there, guys. Good flying. Hope to see you out there.